it's making sense. I don't know if anyone's going to believe me or probably think I'm crazy at this point, but everything's a lie. Everything. Okay. It's all been controlled. I don't even know where to begin or how to begin describing this, but I just want to give you my thoughts with a little bit of evidence. I feel like we're living in a civil psychological war and have been for a while. And what I mean by that is we're undergoing a civil war like we had in the 1860s. Instead of North versus South, it's us versus them, left versus right. It's all politicized and militarized, but not in the way we're used to. So I believe this is all started due to Donald Trump trying to get into office. Now, while I will bring up political topics in this video, please don't take anything I say as me leaning one way or the other. This is just how I see the reality of the situation. I don't care one way or the other, which way the domino or the dice falls as far as Republican or Democrat. I'm right smack dab in the middle because I think either way you lean, right or left, is not good because clearly there's no evidence of it being good. It's only caused conflict. So that's just my opinion. So don't take anything I say here as anything offensive. That's what they want. Just know I mean none and no offense and have no opinion of Donald Trump whatsoever. I hate all of it, and I'm starting to see a little bit of what I feel like is the truth. So the main thesis is controversy doesn't exist, obviously. It's engineered. If you look at humanity, we don't need half of this shit that we hear about every day. It's engineered. It's constantly fed to us because it has to be. That's what the beings at the top are doing. At the end of the day, most people are decent, loving, nurturing, and care for others. There's this thing we all have inside of us called intuition that no one chooses to use because it's ignored because it's just habitually ignored. There's so much noise out there. We're so focused on things that are irrelevant in life, like materialistic items, when we really should be, concerned about our future and our kids' future. This is the whole point of living and being together, growing, learning, figuring new things out, and developing, making headway and progress. When you're stuck in a financial system, monetary policy, and materialism, it's impossible to do that, especially with the levels of manipulation and psychological warfare that we see going on, with the manipulation of social media on all regards, and the manipulation of human thought to this point. Our government wants us to fight over racism, genderism, social status, and everything else to keep us from seeing the reality of the world. It's not that bad. Now, it's us versus them, obviously. This is a classic case of right versus left and us versus each other. This is such a complex situation that it's difficult to even try to explain. So I apologize. Just try to follow along if you can. So we have this article. This is just an example of a narrative spin from 2016, right? So the Washington City paper, a small DC outlet, ran a story, I'm sure you've heard of it, called Alt-Right Conspiracy Theorists Obsess Over Comet Ping Pong on November 6, 2016. Phone call requesting comment for the article marks the moment that restaurateur James Alefantis, his life changed. I'm sure you've heard of Pizzagate, which extremists blasted into mainstream visibility on such sites as Twitter and Reddit, targeted the owner of the pizza shop with the storms, harassment, and lies, falsely suggesting that liberal elites abuse children in the basement of his pizza restaurant. I firmly believe during this period of time, this was them testing out the algorithm to push fake news, because I firmly believe we are all already living under the control of algorithms in the market and the news media. They're all owned by the same entities. They all have the same agenda, and they all somehow interconnect together. Now, there is two sides to this coin, though. The only coin side you ever hear about, due to the fact that everything in media is owned by one-sided coin, that's why it always seems so impossible to distinguish truth from reality, is because we only ever get one side of the coin as far as publicity. Now, this is from November 6, 2016. Media is in full swing, trying to spin a narrative, trying to create division, because they say extremists blasted into mainstream visibility on Twitter and Reddit. Well, in 2021, in hindsight, we know that it was not extremists, that it was paid troll farms, quote unquote, shills, bots, whatever you want to call it, form sliders, the things we've all witnessed this year in the stock market on a daily basis, on Reddit on a daily basis. It's a tactic to use. These products are not free. This is what the cost is. It's dealing with this psychological torment. You have to be above it. And more importantly, it was the algorithm from these sites that pushed this false information. They pick it up, they feed on it. They work off of that. Now, moving on. So this paragraph right here, it reads, the origins. The term troll factory started to emerge on a wider scale in media reports in 2015. At that time, journalists revealed the existence in St. Petersburg of a troll factory employing 300 people. The the entity officially operated as the Internet Research Agency managed by an oligarch, Yevgeny some Russian dude. The duties of the employees included publishing on the internet, mainly in social media, posts praising Russian President Vladimir Putin and criticizing countries not supporting Russia. The operation of this troll factory was initially associated with the annexation of Crimea and then with the presidential election in the United States. So they say. Now, who is they? NATO. NATO wrote that article. Okay, and then in 2020, we get this article saying Facebook's algorithms fueled massive foreign propaganda campaigns during the 2020 election. Here's how algorithms can manipulate you. So we knew at this time there was troll farms, right? But now all of a sudden it's made the leap to an algorithm. So I firmly believe, considering the fact that NATO is the one that wrote this, that the United States was trying to frame Russia for the upcoming psychological narrative that they're about to start pushing, just like they're doing with cyber attacks, just like they're doing with all this internet outage crap. We are behind it, I firmly believe. Russia, even if this is true with the farming or the troll farm, I don't think Russia talking about themselves in a positive light is the same thing as them psychologically manipulating their entire population into believing something, because that is what the United States is doing to everyone here. So they use this as to their advantage to spin their current narrative of them owning and operating these algorithms, them owning and operating these media outlets, to spin the algorithms, to spin the narrative. They own it all. Now, the article's from NATO, who claims that troll factories were on a wider scale in media reports in 2015. 1 year before that, if we go back to the article at the beginning of this video, they call it extremists. So you're telling me that basically the only documentation you can find on troll factories knew they were troll factories, but yet we're calling them extremists 1 year earlier. Or when we knew about troll farms, we're going to go ahead and call it extremists a year after we discover troll factories, according to NATO. Now, the only place you can find information on this troll farm to this extent is from NATO. So how do they operate? Employees of a troll factory create fake identities and run their profiles on social media. It is important to create an impression of the authenticity of the created account. Therefore, not only the content related to the purpose of the troll factory is published here, but also materials making a fictional profile credible, such as those concerning private life. The profiles feature images taken from ready-made internet repositories modified to deceive internet search engines. That is not what they do at all. We know, we've seen troll accounts. They don't have avatars. They're lazy. The profiles feature images taken away from ready-made internet repositories modified to deceive internet search engines. No. Since the troll factory employs hundreds of people and each employee has several accounts, it is easy to create a social network linking fake profiles and creates the impression of a real one. But they don't give any specifics on how to identify that. The longer the given accounts are maintained, the easier it is to create the illusion of reality. People employed in troll factories often work in shifts to ensure that the messages they produce can be displayed on a 24-hour basis. Now, none of this makes sense so far, because as we see, that's not how any of it operates. So my understanding is they, being NATO, being the Atlantic Council, being the ones that are putting their hands in social media, the ones that are getting all of their donations from social media, the ones that are clearly leftist agenda activists, and the ones that are completely against the right and Trump, not to say anything political other than that's just the reality of the situation. They are the ones describing the blueprint for their own engineered narrative that they're unleashing on us today. I guarantee you that is what's going on. None of this was occurring in Russia. They were promoting Russia itself, not psychologically manipulating the people of Russia into believing why they should hate themselves and hate each other. So I firmly believe this is a case of us versus them. United States wants us to think it's Russia. because they don't want us to know it's us. It's our own leftist agenda trying to make their way into power, which is exactly what they're doing. Now, I'm not a leftist. I'm not a rightist. I think the right are just as bad as the left. But, I mean, this is what's going on in my opinion. Now, I firmly believe that NATO, the writer of this document, is giving us their own blueprint for the coming storm. NATO knows that social media is a way of being out in front and managing perception. They have some of the world's most renowned leaders heading the think tank, which is exactly what it is. Conflicts in the future may be increasingly influenced online. That's exactly what's happening. Now, I'll let you simmer with this final thought. NATO's purpose is to guarantee the freedom and security of its members through political and military means. Remember, Donald Trump wanted to withdraw the United States from NATO in 2016. The next year, NATO goes full ham into social media, sending their, fellow Jessica Shu, who was the, Middle Eastern Task Force director there, right after she had that stint there. Guess what? She left and she became the very first content director of Reddit. The very first one. And that was the first thing they did with Reddit. The first position. She even says it herself. She thought it was strange that they hired her first. It was. Because that's their primary priority, is gathering control, social media, so they can seal the deal on their monopoly on media. Then they'll have a monopoly on social media. And then it's hard to get away from this. They're trying to clamp down and have us all under their blanket. So, I mean, the point is, what this movement this year should have taught everyone is to come together. None of these authoritative figures can be trusted. None of them. The only thing that can be trusted is real working people that have lived under this bullshit narrative, this bullshit monetary system, this bullshit capitalist society for so long. That is the one thing we have going for us that we can use to our advantage. It's because we know the difference between someone that's been living through the day in and day out of the game that they've created and someone that's above the game itself. It's so easy to tell the difference. Unless you're online, apparently. But yeah, I believe this was a United States 100% engineered everything we're seeing today. All of the division, everything. It's a left versus right thing. The left's trying to get back at the right. The right's trying to get back at the left. The left owns the media, so they're going through the psychological aspect. That's all they can do. So, while the right is more leaning towards military, the left is leaning towards psychological military. So, pick your poison. Have a good one.